All right, hey everybody, this is Eric Dettman again, co-host with
Jason Retz.
on the Low Stick Running Podcast. We're super excited for today as we are transitioning into or from summer into the actual season. Some of us, like Jason, have started already with their first official day of practice.
Yep.
Others, like myself, we start next Monday. But leading into that first day of practice, we both feel very strongly about team summer camps, and that's what we want to talk about today. And we've kind of hinted at it on some previous podcasts that we've done of around, some of the things that are specific to our teams and stuff like that. But we really wanted to dive into that topic. One, because we've heard others talking about it. Two, because we've had other people ask us specifically about our camps. And three, we both find them to be super, super valuable in terms of being able to, set goals, build team camaraderie, all that good stuff. So let's start there, Jason. Anything initially that you want to talk about before we dive in? And I've got a lot of questions for you because I think you do some really cool, unique stuff.
I just add to what you're saying. I think we both do team camps. We both do them differently. I've done a variety of different, and we're going to talk about this. But this year, for example, we did just one day, and we started earlier in the morning, and then we ended in the early evening. We've gone times where we've gone full 24 hours, and we've gone on camps where we've been gone 3 or 4 days. So there's benefit to all of it, and we're going to dive into it here. But if you're not doing a team camp right now, it's something maybe to think about 2024 as you get going.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. That was a big thing that, when I first started at Lincoln High School, the head coach at the time had kind of thrown around the idea of team camp. And in high school, we didn't necessarily do a camp where we went away, but we had a camp where we met all summer. But with my coaching experience, I felt like it was really, really important to bring those kids together. We could talk about team goals and bring, camaraderie, and the guys and the girls team can build a relationship. And there were so many different components that I thought were really, really, really important to our team that, similar to what Jason said, I think it's one of those things, like if you haven't done it, it's something to consider. And I hope that, when we're done with today, we can give you some ideas of what to do and directions to go in. So let's start with you, Jason, because I think it's super unique. One day, like most people think team camps and they're like, oh, we got to go for multiple days. I don't know if I can do that, right? I don't know if my job allows it. I don't know if I can get all the kids to want to go for 3 days. I don't know if logistically we can make it happen. Everybody can find a day. Tell us a little bit about what that looks like.
So several years ago, we started going to one day, and my idea was to get them as fatigued as possible and around each other so much that they were honest with each other. They were kind of wore out from each other to then sit down and talk about their goals. So we could experience a variety of different things. So from year to year, we've done all kinds of different things. No 2 years has it been the same. We've brought in the FBI, and they went through a kidnapping scenario. We kidnapped one of our kids. We've gone to the Fire Institute, where the Fire Institute has instructed us on team working goals. They put out fires on three-story buildings. We've done a variety of different things. This year, we met with a specialist, Doug McDaniel, who took us through a meditation and visualization course as we started the day, just to kind of get us present on what we were doing. And through the one day, what we tried to do is work on the weaknesses of the team to then build us up as we get to our goals towards the end. When we would do a multi-day camp, we would do similar things, but we weren't in a situation where we were just wearing them out, teaching them. We would go to a clinic, then they'd have free time. They'd go play tag for a while. We'd come back, do something else. We have them 100% of the time locked in on what we're doing just for one day. We take away their cell phones. If there's a problem, parents know how to get a hold of me. We separate them as much from reality as possible. And I think that's the big thing about the one day that works so well is they're not high school kids at St. Joseph Ogden High School. They are in this group of people that are away from everything they're used to doing and from being normal. And I think that's what is so special about the one day is the separating from everything. We did that for multi-day camps, but I think with the one day, just jam-packing it full of stuff, it really helps them get to know each other, get to know the coaches, focus on what they really want, and see who each other truly are.
Yeah. Do you guys run during your one day as well, or is it just more like team building type stuff?
It's just team building stuff. No running.
Yeah.
they get their rundown in the morning, and then we take them sometime after that and go from there.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you've done a variety of different activities. You talked about bringing the FBI and the kidnapping situation. You've talked about working with the fire marshal. What prompts these ideas? Is it I look at my team and this is the makeup and I want them to experience this type of scenario because it's going to help with XYZ? Is it I've got a relationship with this guy and he talked to me about this and it's super cool? Like, what's the thought process that goes into choosing some of those activities?
So I look at what the team makeup is and what we
Mhm.
really need. And specifically in the years where we kidnapped one of our athletes, we needed to appreciate every person on the team, and that was kind of the focus. And after we kidnapped her, I mean, I had kids in tears because they thought it was real. You know, we worked this thing as real as possible, and they valued each other differently after that scenario. So when I'm thinking of what I want to do with them, I think about or who comes and speaks to them. I think about what the team really needs and what will help them grow the most in that short amount of time. I've had Green Berets come and talk about their training and walk us through what it takes. This year was awesome. We did a team obstacle course after we did meditation, and we've done this obstacle course as a group before, but every single person was locked in for every single person, cheering them on, encouraging them. And I think having that meditation and visualization and being present, which is what we were trying to really work on, really came out during that time period. And it was just awesome to see. So, long story short, try to find what your team needs and evolve from there. I didn't know, I had some ideas of some people at the Fire Institute that I could talk to, but I was just reaching out, right? I was looking for people, a bigger purpose. You think of somebody who's fighting a fire and they have to work together or someone dies, right? And so we did a variety of different activities. Anything you can think of, the sky's the limit. Reach out. You may not know somebody, but you may be able to connect with somebody or ask around at school to find someone. I got a couple
Yeah, be
other
creative. I think that's the big one.
a couple other ideas up my sleeve, but I don't want the kids to know, so I'm gonna keep those in my sleeve. You can email
Sure.
us and ask if you want.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think that, you're spot on, like being creative, finding different outlets because, what one kid hears from this person may be entirely different of what they hear from another person. And putting as many of those types of people in front of our kids as possible, I think just encapsulates exactly what we want as coaches for them to grow as human beings and be more prepared for life.
Yeah, the perspective differences, that
Yeah.
is absolutely huge. So take me through a little bit what your an overview of your camp looks like. How many days are you there?
So we leave Portland, Oregon at noon on Sunday, and we drive to the Oregon coast. It's about 75 minutes away. I've got a friend out there who's got a plot of land that's absolutely stunning, beautiful. His plot of land is full of hydrangea flowers. He's got a 1 mile road that's kind of the outer loop of his camp. Inside of that is a big grass field. There's a 400-meter dirt track. There's all these different awesome things that we have access to. We also do a really cool hike. We've got a dirt road that we can do some workouts on. But for us, it's really important. We go with a couple of other teams. So this year was ourselves, Ida B. Wells, Clackamas High School, and Sunset High School, which are all in the Portland metro area. And for me, there's a couple of things. One, it's really important that our kids develop relationships with kids outside of their program. When we get to meet day, like, do we want to win? Yeah, absolutely. Do we want to beat everybody? Absolutely. But I think there's something really special to create that connection with people outside of your own program. Secondly, all of the head coaches and some of the assistants will do some type of talk at our team camp. And what's great about that is we might be saying the same thing, just using different verbiage, and that might resonate with our kids a little bit better. And if they hear the same message from the IDB Wells coach that they hear from me, but they hear it in a different way and it resonates more, that's a win. Because at the end of the day, we all want the same things for our kids. So it's great, right? We go on a big hike, we do all these team activities together. Kids get grouped up in teams where you've got 20 kids on one team from all 4 different high schools. They got to do a bunch of activities together, whatever that might be. we'll do a fun hike. We do a really awesome progression run on the last day. Kids are playing volleyball and tag and all these different things. So it's awesome. I really love it, and it's been a staple to our program, since 2019. And it's just gotten better and better. And a big thing that we individually try to focus on is, initially, like when we started doing team camps, where I was talking at the beginning of this podcast, is we would take 7 boys and 7 girls. And how often do we get to the state meet and those 7 are your 7 that are lining up at the state meet? Like, it's pretty rare. So what I started to realize is, like, we needed to take more kids. So we took this year 46 kids. It's so it's Sunday to Thursday, but it's cost effective. It's $250 a kid, which is really cheap when you think about that length of time. That includes meals, it includes bus, it includes a t-shirt for the kids. It's all these different things. But I really want number 50 or number 46 on the team to be best friends with number 1. Because if that's the case, like, it just helps to create for everybody to create a better experience, to create a better environment. So that's a big component, right? And then I want number 26, who maybe is a freshman boy, to look at the number 1 and be like, shoot, I want to be that guy someday. And the more they can kind of rub shoulders at team camp, the more they're going to rub shoulders over the course of the season. And next thing you know, that senior, who's one of the best guys in the country potentially, is taking that freshman out on a training run. And that's a forever moment for that kid, and something that he's going to take with him and then hopefully pass on down. So a little bit long-winded with my response, but that's kind of the gist of what we do. I mean, there's obviously other smaller components, but those are a lot of big things we try to focus on.
Now, we're a small team, so pretty much everybody goes for us, but what are the parameters for you on how you get to go to the team camp?
Yeah, that's a good question. So it is an invite only camp, but we want to take as many kids as possible. So a lot of what we try to focus on, there's 3 main things that you have to do in order to go to camp. One, you have to be at practice. So we're going to meet, 3 or 4 times a week over the course of a season. You have to be there in order to go. If you're not there, the second thing is you have to be communicating with coaches on a consistent basis. So we have kids who travel and go on vacation or whatever, kids going to Hawaii or wherever it might be. They have to continue to run, and they have to make sure that they're checking in with us so that we know that they're working. The last one, the big one, honestly, is community service. Every kid is required to do 2 hours of community service in order to go to our camp. And that was a big thing that we started in 2021. And the purpose for that, or the reason for that, is like, we want to give back to the community. Like, we're so fortunate, we're so lucky to have what we have and to be able to go out and do the things that we do. Not everybody has that same ability. So if we can go out and we can give back to the community a little bit, I think it gives us a greater appreciation for what we have. So those are kind of the 3 big things, right? You got to run if you're there. If you're not, you got to communicate with coaches. Then lastly, you have to do the 2 hours of community service.
Well, that sounds like good people above all, right?
Yeah, and that's what we're trying to focus on. So, and it's cool. Like, some of our kids, especially the newcomers, like, I don't even know what to do. Like, how do I go out and find community service? And I think one of them Googled, like, how do I do community service in Portland? And then they found some website and all these things popped up, and then they did like 3 of them. And then they got some of their teammates to do it with them together. And that's a neat experience.
Yeah.
And everyone keeps bringing them in together. So, so that's kind of what that looks like, but invite only, but we certainly want to bring as many as possible.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So, you go through, you mentioned at the beginning that you go through this big day, this big taxing day, emotionally, mentally, whatever, your goal setting you have at the end of camp. What does that look like? Are the kids leading it? Are you leading it? Why do you choose to have that at the end where they're emotionally taxed?
Well, this is something that's evolved over time. And I think right now I've found my sweet spot after almost 20 years of doing this. Is we have the last 2 years, when we get to the end, we invite all the families. They can bring their brother, sister, mom, dad. Heck, I don't care if grandma and grandpa show up. But we have a meal together, and the kids huddle with their family. So everybody brings a lawn chair and they huddle with their family, and they talk about what they've done. And wherever we're at, they kind of walk them through what they did, where they were at, what it looked like. We just happened to be at the obstacle course this time, and they were able to take them over and show them how difficult it was, show them the scars on their hands. They really were able to reflect on what they had done. And with their parents there, they're communicating with them. Their parents can ask questions if they want. So we get through this, They have a meal. After the meal, they sit down individually with their parents, and I give the parents a little bit of an outline. I want them to kind of be devil's advocate, and they go through their individual goals with their parents sitting there. And it's just in their little circle where I tell the parents, hey, if your son or daughter says they want to run so fast, really call them out, ask them, is that something that you're willing to do? And I was lucky enough to have a coach in our area, Todd Voland, who's a tremendous Hall of Fame coach. He came and spoke to our kids before we got to our goal setting. And he and I played back and forth as mom and dad and athlete and asked questions and kind of showed what that conversation needs to look like. And so they took probably 10 or 15 minutes and they all walked through what that goal setting looked like. After we got done with that, we broke out into just our teams. And as we got into our teams, the guys' team was on one side, girls' team was on the other. The parents sat behind them in their lawn chairs and they listened to the conversation. They listened to what the kids said they wanted to happen. Because I know you and I are very similar on this. We don't ever want to lose anything ever in our entire lives, but sometimes you don't have a team that necessarily thinks that way. And so our job is to help rudder the ship whichever direction they want to go. So I think it's really important that not only we listen to, but they have a firm grasp on what they want to accomplish. And our goal is to help put them in position to achieve the things they want to achieve. Sometimes we can take them past those things. But I think it's very important that they hear, our mom and dad hears the words come out of their mouth that say, hey, we want to earn a state trophy. Yeah. Okay, well, that didn't come from my mouth. That came from their mouth. Right. And that's really important. And so Coach Voland sat with our guys and kind of played devil's advocate. And I sat with our girls and played devil's advocate and kind of walked them through progression of goals. Some people call them objectives, whatever you want. But what we primarily look at is we start at the top. What is the end goal for us? And then we look at the steps in order to get there. So I let them say whatever they want to say. If they want to say they want to win a Nike Cross Nationals championship, I'll say, okay, now how the heck are we going to do that? And then we start working backwards. And so we look at things we need to do every day, every week, after every race. And we really create an outline what that looks like. All about the whole time, the parents are listening, right? They are in on this. The communication is there. They're going to be your biggest support system to help you out through this. If they say they're going to do this, to me, they need to know at home what it looks like. Well, you are not going to bed. It's 1 o'clock. You need to get to bed. You got a race tomorrow. All of those things are important. I can't tuck them in every night. I can't cook every meal.
Let me ask you this, because I think that's fascinating. I mean, and you've actually never brought this up to me, but I think it's a really cool idea. It's the kids who are leading this within their circle with their parents, right? Have you ever had a parent who tries to lead that session? So it's a kid who's sitting there and the dad or the mom, whomever's like, well, I want you to run under 16 minutes this year. Like, have you dealt with that? And if so, how have you dealt with that? Or maybe you haven't, how would you deal with that?
So it's interesting you say that, because at the end, what we did last year, and the guys carried it over to this year as well, is they asked the parents what they want to see out of them. And so the parents, we want quality listeners. We want you to follow through on your actions. We want you to do these things. So as the conversation is led, the parents can put in their input as well throughout that journey. But I've never had a parent that says, I want you to run this fast. I have parents that say, I want you to be accountable to what you say you're going to do. I want you to listen when it's time to listen. I want you to have fun. I want you to cheer on your teammates. And I think that's just as powerful as well. They go all the way around the circle. And I just happen to be a dad of one of the athletes as well. So, I threw in my 2 cents at the very end, and they were very small, and it was more of a parent than a coach. And I think that's really important that they hear that side of me as well. Not because my son's on the team, but because I know the journey they're on.
Yeah, I think that's awesome, because I think that, oftentimes parents are so in the dark about like what their kids want to accomplish. And we do all our goal setting as kids. We don't, or, teams, kids with their coaches, but we don't necessarily broadcast that to everybody. We're not telling our parents like, hey, the kids want to do this. Maybe you've got a couple of parents who you're closer with who are a little bit more around the program who might have those conversations. But yeah, that's a really fascinating idea I've not considered before.
And they can support each other at meets, right?
Right.
And to know what everybody's doing instead of just being there at the one race to cheer on their kid and not watch anything else. Now they got an idea what everybody's trying to achieve throughout the course of the season. And are we on track for that? We walked them through all of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what is your, you talk about what your week looks like. How do you get down to your goal setting? What does that look like for you guys?
Yeah, we do it pretty early. So we get in Sunday, like I said, and Monday is when we're doing our goal setting. And it's really dependent on a per year basis, because some of our groups are more veterans, some of our groups are more newcomers, and we're really trying to play to that crowd. So an example of that is like our girls this year are quite strong. They've been around the program, they've raced at high level meets, whether it's state or nationals or whatever it might be. Our boys, we graduated 7 of our top 8. So those conversations looked very different. But what we really wanted to try to focus on was athletically, what do we want to accomplish? And that's individual and team. And then as a team component, what do we want to accomplish? So like our girls, for example, every girl had to come up with a different team activity that they were going to lead over the course of this season. And then when we went to them on the last day of camp, we told them ahead of time, like, listen, we're going to do this. When we listen or when we talk to you on the last day of camp, I'm going to go up to you. I'm going to say, all right, athlete A, what's your idea for a team activity that we're going to do after practice or on a weekend or something? And what I don't want to hear is, because you're trying to make it up on the fly. I want you to put some genuine thought into this. Whereas the boys, they kind of just sat by themselves without coaches, and it's awesome. They took our 3 values: love your teammates, be the best version of yourself, and wherever you are, be all there. And they wrote actionable items, 1 actionable item for each of our team mantras that they wanted to focus on over the course of the season, which was super cool. So it's really dependent on the group. For the girls, we felt like we needed to do that to bridge certain gaps. For the boys, they're brand new, and we have a couple of amazing senior leaders, but like I said, we graduated 7 of our top 8. So we needed those younger kids to buy into the idea of who we are and what we want to accomplish. Because a lot of these kids, some of them have never run cross country before. Some of them have run a cross country season in their life, and that's it. They're all so new to this that we wanted to focus on helping them to understand who we are as a core, as a core for our team. And that was really powerful. So it's really different. And right, everyone throws out big goals. Girls talk about, we want to go to NXN, win a state title. Boys, we want to trophy at the state meet, whatever it might be. But then we're going to talk about actionable items. And I told the kids, like, this is going to be the hardest I'm ever going to coach you this year because of what you guys are saying.
Yeah.
I'm going to hold you accountable for that. And you may not always like it, and that's okay. And you may not always understand it, and that's okay. But I promise you, if we focus on the things that we're talking about in this room at this moment, like, we're going to find some serious success over the course of the season. So it's really dependent, similar to what you said on what those individual teams need. But we really try to be thoughtful, and we'll sit down and talk as a coaching staff ahead of time of what that potentially is going to look like.
I know exactly what I want every kid to do every day, but I know that that's not going to happen. And I think the power of the coach is to be able to make those adjustments. A coach is not putting the workout on a piece of paper and them executing it. A coach is the art form of listening to what they need as people and adapting that to what they're doing for the team. And you do a tremendous job. I mean, that's a prime example. You had the same day goal setting, and they're doing 2 completely different things, but the outcome is the same. They're becoming closer together and becoming better people, and hopefully faster runners, right? We're in this to go fast too. We can't forget that.
Right. And I think that's a big thing too, is I try to be really thoughtful with kids, but I'm also not afraid to call them out, call them out in front of everybody. So like, we had a kid who said, like, I want to break 17 minutes for 5K. And I'm thinking in my head, like, you just ran the equivalent of 10:20 for 2 miles last year as a freshman, your first every year running. Like, you're going to run faster. Dream bigger. And then he says, I want to break 16. Dream bigger. Like, I'm not afraid to be that person, because we want these kids to dream big. And if it doesn't work out the way that we want it to every time, that's okay too. And we talk a lot about that. But like, we're never going to get to a place if we don't allow ourselves to dream to get there. If we don't think it's possible, we're not going to do it. So we really try to force our kids to make big goals and accept big goals. Because, I think Jay Johnson says this, you can't do hard things unless you do hard things, or something like that. Like, you can't do big things unless you don't dream big things. And we try to focus a lot on that.
Yeah, this is not the retired runners group. That's the 5K club. Like, we're trying to run fast. We're trying to get the best version of you. And I think it's important that they know that it's okay to be competitive, and it's not all fluffy stuff along the way. It is going to be hard conversations sometimes, and we are going to try to hold you accountable. I mean, we're 3 days into practice, and we've already talked about, do we really believe in what our goals are? And I think that's a positive thing. It's our job as coaches to know what they've got, an idea of what they want to achieve, and try to help hold them accountable to that.
100%. Yeah, I totally agree, because I think at the end of the day, this is a setup for life in terms of setting goals, whether it's setting an agenda for the day, planning for a week, a month, whatever, like that. This is the beginning of that process. So if we can help those kids get it right now, they're likely gonna get it right in the long run. So team camps, we've talked about some cool stuff. We've talked about goal setting. We've talked about some of the individual stuff that your program does, my program does. If I'm a new listener and I'm listening to this thinking like, there's a lot of information here, where do I start? What are some like key things that you would say, like, if you're going to have a team camp, make sure you do this, or make sure you think about that?
I would say start at the bare minimum. If you are starting your season, you haven't had a camp, find a day during the season, a weekend, get your kids away from what is normal, sit down around a bonfire, and have a discussion about team goal setting. Don't do it in your school library. Don't do it in the cafeteria. Don't do it in the parking lot. Don't do it in the park that you always go run. Take them somewhere out of their comfort zone, away from everything, and have that time with them. Let it be dark outside. Put a fire on the log, right? I think that's where you start. If you think, hey, 2024, I want to do these things, I didn't do any of this, you can do that right now. You can do that in the next 4 weeks. You can do it after the season begins. But I think that time is a great way to lay that foundation. From there, work backwards. Work backwards from what you can do. Just like we would work the state meet calendar for workouts backwards, do the same thing here. Start with that goal setting, figure out what you can do, time, resources, and work backwards. Maybe you have one activity before your goal setting. Maybe you have 2 things. Maybe you have a day. Maybe you have 3 days, right? It's feasible for us to go somewhere and have a 3-day camp. I've just found with a smaller team, our value has been just spot on with that one day. I don't have any problem. You go to, and I stole this from John Sipple, but we go to a local college and we rent it out. We stay there, we eat, we do everything there. It's just us. We've done that before, and that was absolutely great. But with what we've got, I think our perfect spot right now is that one day, all day. So work backwards. That would be my number one suggestion for a brand new coach getting in this. Even if you're not a new coach and you're like, I don't want to do that all the time, start a fire somewhere and sit by it.
Totally. I think the one thing I would add to that, that's worked well for us, is have parameters around what it takes to get to camp. So especially if you're a bigger program like us, like, you want to bring as many kids as possible, and it's important that you do that. But create incentive to go, and it's not just you get to go because you get to go. And I think kids internally will consider it to be a bigger experience. I think kids actually want to go more because there's some type of value that's placed on that. And it's something that's really simple. It's an easy way for us to be able to know exactly what our kids are doing. And it's an easy way for your kids to get back to the community, right? For us, it's community service. You can choose something else. But I think having some parameters around what it takes to go, rather than just everybody gets to go, I think creates incentive to want to go and to want to be a part of that. And we've used it for us as like a recruiting tool. We've had kids who have come and they're trying to figure out, am I going to play soccer, or am I going to run cross country? Well, team camp was pretty darn awesome. So now I'm going to run cross country. So I think that, creating that incentive to want to be there has been really successful for us.
That's awesome. Great stuff.
Yeah. So I think that's about it. Anything else that you can think of? Maybe some don'ts. Are there certain things that you've done at team camps that it's like, I don't really like that idea. I don't think I want to do that again. Because I think all the time we're worried about certain things that are going to happen, but we don't maybe know what they are. Are there experiences that you've had that that you would shy away from again?
I think if you're going to do an overnight, this is just logistically, you make sure you have enough coaches, you have enough people there to help you out. whatever it might be. We've brought parents before to help us cook, and that's been awesome as well. The more you can involve them, the bigger support system you have. I think there's less don'ts, and more of start where you're comfortable and then expand from there where you're at. One of the things we haven't spent a lot of time on, but we could definitely talk about is in years past, the adjustments are the things that you've seen actually come out of team camp, relationships, goals, the consistency. Can you predict when groups are going to follow through, and can you predict when they're not going to follow through, and what adjustments do you make throughout the course of the season? So maybe that leads on to what we can talk about early September is maybe what we've seen develop out of our team camps and early into the season, and kind of go from there.
Yeah, I like that idea. And as we were going through this, I was actually thinking to myself, like, how cool would it be to we've talked about our camp and what we're doing and some of the things that we've come up with out of there, but talk about some of the goal setting, where we're at now, what adjustments we've made, and how that's worked, or maybe that hasn't worked. Because I think everybody is going through that over the course of a season where they have to make those adjustments. I think that's a great idea.
You get kids healthy, some kids may get banged up. What are you doing to help their psyche? What are you doing to keep them on board after they've come out all energetic after team camp?
Right.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think let's explore that next time.
Yeah, awesome. Well, we appreciate all of you listening to us again for another Low Stick podcast. Please like, follow, share, subscribe, all of the above on whatever platform you're using. But once again, I'm Eric Dettman.
Yeah, I'm Jason Retz.
And thanks for your time. We'll see you next month.